Hello, my name is Tammy, and I'm a Christian deliverance minister. As we count down to the election of President of the United States on November 8th, I am bringing a regular word from the Lord to talk about something that He and I have talked about in prayer or through the scriptures or about an issue that is being debated for the election. And so I want to today bring a word. Now, this is something that has been debated with people. I call them trolls, whatever. When I say that Donald Trump is God's man on the scene, they think that I have just made that up, that I didn't hear that from God, that God doesn't really have a preference. He just, whatever, you know. And so I'm going to bring you a little bit of the word from 1 Samuel 16 and 1 Samuel 17. And this is the story of King David. Before he became king, as he was selected by God, and as he went up against Goliath. And so I'm going to bring you a little bit of that. I'm also going to give you a reference right now, just in case I don't have time to get to it, and that's Genesis 37. It's the story of Joseph, who was positioned to save a nation from famine. And he had to go through quite a bit of struggles to get where God had needed him to be in order for him to save that nation. So we see that God intentionally chose Joseph. We know that God intentionally chose David, and we can ascertain from many other stories in the Bible that God does choose someone to come in and bring deliverance. And that's the case with Donald Trump. And so I'm going to bring you this word from 1 Samuel 16. And this is starting in verse 1. The Lord said to Samuel, "How long will you mourn for Saul, since I have rejected him as king over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and be on your way. I am sending you to Jesse of Bethlehem. I have chosen one of his sons to be king." But Samuel said, "How can I go? If Saul hears about it, he will kill me." The Lord said, "Take a heifer with you, and say, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what to do. You are to anoint for me the one I indicate." Samuel did what the Lord said. When he arrived at Bethlehem, the elders of the town trembled when they met him. They asked him, "Do you come in peace?" Samuel replied, "Yes, in peace I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Consecrate yourselves and come to the sacrifice with me." Then he consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. When they arrived, Samuel saw Eliab and thought, "Surely the Lord's anointed stands here before the Lord." But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things that people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." Then Jesse called Abinadab and had him pass in front of Samuel. But Samuel said, "The Lord has not chosen this one either." Jesse then had Shammah pass by, but Samuel said, "Nor has the Lord chosen this one." Jesse had 7 of his sons pass before Samuel, but Samuel said to him, "The Lord has not chosen these." So he asked Jesse, "Are these all the sons you have?" "There is still the youngest," Jesse answered. "He is tending the sheep." Samuel said, "Send for him. We will not sit down until he arrives." So he sent for him and had him brought in. He was glowing with health and had a fine appearance and handsome features. Then the Lord said, "Rise and anoint him. This is the one." So Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the presence of his brothers. And from that day on, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully on David. Okay, so now I'm going to read from 1 Samuel 17. And this is the story of when David, as a young shepherd boy, comes to the battle scene where Goliath, the giant, the Philistine, is boasting about how he's going to, destroy the Israelites. And so I'm going to start in 1 Samuel 17, verse 23. As he was talking with them, Goliath, the Philistine champion from Gath, stepped out of his lines and shouted his usual defiance, and David heard it. Whenever the Israelites saw the man, they all fled from him in great fear. Now the Israelites had been saying, "Do you see how this man keeps coming out? He comes out to defy Israel. The king will give great wealth to the man who kills him. He will also give him his daughter in marriage and will exempt his family from taxes in Israel." David asked the men standing near him, "What will be done for the man who kills this Philistines and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is the uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" They repeated to him what they had been saying and told him, "This is what will be done for the man who kills him." When Eliab, David's oldest brother, heard him speaking with the men, he burned with anger at him and asked, "Why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness?" I know are conceited. How conceited you are, and how wicked your heart is. You came down only to watch the battle. Now what have I done, said David. Can't I even speak? He turned away and to someone else and brought up the same matter. I'm going to skip through that a little bit. So this is David talking about how the Lord has brought him to this place, starting in verse 36. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of the Philistine. Saul said to David, go, and the Lord be with you. All right, then I'm going to go down a little bit further. I want to bring you to the fight. Meanwhile, the Philistine, verse 41, with his shield bearer in front of him, kept coming closer to David. He looked David over and saw that he was little more than a boy, glowing with health and handsome, and he despised him. He said to David, am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. Come here, he said, and I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals. David said to the Philistine, you come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. This very day I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. Okay, I'm going to stop there. This is really, I would encourage you to read it. It's an ultimate battle scene. But I want you to see that God has supernaturally empowered and has chosen Donald Trump to save our nation from socialism, globalism, and just every manner of evil. And so I ask you to go to the Lord and just seek the Lord and want to know the Lord's will personally. Okay? And there's other teaching videos on this channel that you can look at that teach you how to discern God's voice. And I just pray that today that will be your hope, is to seek the Lord and know Him. In the precious and holy name of Jesus.